This week, we are celebrating the 200th episode of the 360 Leadership Podcast. I just want to start this episode by saying thank you so much for being such a loyal listener. And if you're new here, you are very, very welcome. The show is packed full of tips and tools and inspiration and stories to support you in your leadership journey, but not just in your career. If you know me, I'm all about that 360-degree success, which is why I founded my membership 360 Leaders Club, which you can check out at 360leadersclub.com. But that prompted me to record this episode because I have considered shutting down this podcast, and it's definitely not for the reason that you might think. So tune into today's episode and I look forward to hearing your feedback. I'm a little bit nervous sharing this, but I have to go with my heart. So here goes. Welcome back to another episode of the 360 Leadership Podcast. And this is not just any episode. This is our 200th episode of the show. So whether you're new here or you're a loyal long-term listener, I see you, I appreciate you, and I am so glad that you show up here to learn and to develop yourself, because you, my lovely lady, are my favorite kind of woman. The show has gone global. We have been in over 100 countries. We have been number one in the podcast charts many, many times and Apple Podcast careers. We have listeners all over the world with tens of thousands of downloads. And I receive emails on the daily or DMs from women telling me how valuable the podcast is to them. So can you imagine, like 4 years ago when I started this podcast, I was terrified. I was afraid nobody would listen and I didn't think I had anything valuable to say. And turns out I was very wrong. So that's why it might surprise you to learn that I nearly shut down this podcast. Because after 200 episodes, I had to ask myself, is this podcast in alignment with my vision and why I do what I do? And I'm going to share a little bit about that with you today, because the reason I started my business, 360 Leadership Training and Development, and my signature program, 360 Leaders Club, was because I believe that every single woman in leadership should not have to sacrifice her work-life balance for her career. I also believe that every single woman in leadership is valuable and that life is too short to spend it stuck in your head, overanalyzing, people-pleasing, saying yes when you mean no, not saying what you really want to say, not reaching your potential, and not using your voice when you have a platform when you're at senior level. Because when more women rise in senior leadership, sure, you can get there. But are you making the impact that's going to change our world, that's going to inspire future generations? Like, I have a vision of a world where there are more women owning their voices, because I know it will lead to more harmony in the world. And so that was my whole vision for my business. And that is exactly the change I start to create every single day in 360 Leaders Club, with the stories that I share on socials. Or if you listen to the podcast, you're going to hear some amazing transformation stories. But that's only like a small portion of who listens to my show. And I had to ask myself, if I want to create change in the world and I want to support women and empower you with the tools that I wish I had sooner, is the podcast in alignment with that? And I really had to take a good look and say to myself, it's probably not anymore. It's probably not really in alignment, because so many of you stay stuck. Yeah, it gives you a feel-good hit of motivation, but does it lead to change? Because insight without action is just a nice distraction. So I'm going to say that again, because insight without action is just a nice distraction. You tell me you love the podcast, that it inspires you on your commute, on your walk, and your coffee break, and you always learn something. But here's the hard truth. Most of you are still trying to do this on your own. And months, maybe years go by, and you're still overthinking, still people-pleasing, still stuck in cycles of self-doubt. And inside 360, one of our core principles is results-focused thinking. We teach our women to stop measuring their value by how much they learn and start measuring it by the results that they create. So I'm going to say that again. We are all about what I call results-focused thinking, which is you can go to all the meetings, you can read all the self-help books, you can go to the seminars, you can listen to the podcast. But if you don't take action with what you've learned, you will stay exactly where you are. Because knowledge without execution is what I like to call shelf help. So you get your books, your self-help books, they stay on the shelf and nothing changes. So on this 200th episode, as I consider the future of the show, I want to ask you these, and I would invite you to pause and check in with yourself. Where were you this time 6 months ago? And has anything changed? Are you still overanalyzing every word in that email or that meeting? Are you still playing small in conversations where there's conflict or confrontation, where you should lead? Are you still masking who you really are and showing up as a different version of you to work, when the real authentic you is just bursting to get out? Are you still working hard and doing everything right? But are you watching others get ahead? Be that promotions, be that recognition, be that pats on the back. Are they getting ahead? Are you still saying you're too busy? Are you still saying next time? Every time you hear me talk about inviting you to apply to Join 360, has anything changed? And finally, I want you to reflect on, if this is landing in your heart and in your gut, what's the cost of staying exactly where you are 6 months from now? Because what I see the cost to be with people is cost of lost sleep, which, by the way, reduces your life expectancy, increased stress, which also causes health issues, relationship issues, which causes conflict, disconnection, loneliness, overthinking, cost of missing opportunities, which are financial. Because fun fact, I did the maths recently, and actually most of our members in 360 Leaders Club make back their investment at least fivefold, okay? At least fivefold within the first couple of years. So is the cost staying stuck? What are you missing out on in terms of opportunities and promotions and finance? What are you missing out on in terms of who you really are and what you want to give to the world? Because I don't want that for you. I want you to own your worth. I want you to show up and lead powerfully. I want you to be an example for the women who are looking up to you, and you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to the future generations who are wondering, God, it looks really stressful at that senior level. I don't think I want to go into leadership. Because guys, we're in our 40s here on this show. Most of us are in our 50s. The younger generation don't care as much about career, and they don't need the validation in the same way a lot of us did. So I really worry for the future of leadership, because they're not driven the same way we are, because they don't think it's possible to have it all. They see people acting stiff and corporate and not having time for themselves and sacrificing their health and their relationships. How is that attractive? Because it's not. But you can change that. And I can tell you story after story after story of transformation with the Women in 360 Leaders Club when you actually work with me. And the interesting thing that I want you to know that you mightn't know about is inside 360, we actually have a 7-step system that is proven that's built to create results, not just aha moments. I'm going to record an episode on the 7 steps, but one of those steps is learn. Just one of them. So if you're learning on this podcast, I am so happy that you're learning, but I am doing you a total disservice by not letting you know that there's actually 6 other steps. And if you're not taking those 6 steps, it's exactly why you are still stuck. It is exactly why you are watching people with half your talent, but double your confidence, get opportunities that you know you could do better. It's why you shy away from conflict. It's why sometimes people walk all over you and you end up the one picking up the pieces with no time, counting down the years to retirement, wishing it was summer holidays. Guys, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. And I have all the facts and the logic and the story to back it up. You just need to trust me that there is another way. So if this lands with you and you're like a long-term podcast listener, or you're a new podcast listener and you want to lead with more confidence, you want to work on your executive presence, you want to increase your impact, you want to reclaim your time, and you want to do all of this while feeling healthy, while feeling strong, while feeling empowered, and while feeling like the most like yourself you've ever felt in, I would say, decades, 360 is where you belong. It is the most fantastic leadership development experience on the market, bar none, because what we do in 360 that's different versus other leadership programs is we look at you. We're not just looking at your leadership. Of course, we're giving you practical tools and frameworks that I have personally developed after 2 decades of doing leadership training and still not being able to lead myself, still shying away from conflict, still not knowing how to properly communicate so that I can influence and impact in the way that I wanted to. Because what they don't address is the underlying psychology behind all of this, which is exactly what I weave into every single thing that I teach with myself and my guest experts. So here's something that most people don't get. The more you learn, the more you earn. But if you don't take action, you're just in procrastination, right? Nothing is going to change because you can't podcast your way to your next level. You can't podcast your way to unlocking your potential. What you need is you need structure, you need feedback, you need training, you need coaching, you need strategic reflection, you need sustainable habit building, and you need community. And yes, you need action every single week. So if you're done collecting information and you are ready to say yes to yourself, you are ready to remind yourself that you are worthy of this investment. It is okay for you to invest this time in you. In 360, guys, you only need to allow 30 to 60 minutes a week. And if you can't give yourself half an hour to an hour a week, you should be doing at least 3 hours. Okay. I had one of our members share recently on the podcast, I think it was episode 199 or 98. I'm not sure which one it is. Marie was her name. And she said exactly the same as you. You know, I don't have time. Will I be able to commit? But what she said is that since she's joined 360, she had to put in some time, but she has got so much more time back. She spoke about being able to put her kids to bed on, tuck her kids in and, have time for herself and go to the gym. But all of that aside, as well as getting promoted and as well as showing up authentically. So I want you to know it is possible. So if you haven't listened to that episode, Marie's a senior manager in the pharmaceutical industry. Go back and listen. She was on with the amazing Sandra Groban, who was sharing her transformation as well. And then also I recorded another episode with another 2 members, with Danielle and Avril, who were sharing how 360 benefited them too. So here's my heartfelt call to action. Let today be the day that you take imperfect action. Because when you invest in yourself, something happens inside you. You say yes to you. You realize that you are worthy of this. And when you do it once, when you invest in you, you will be committed because you are going to get your return on your investment. And I am going to share a little bit more. I might do an episode next week on the 7 steps, so you can understand a little bit more about the whole system and why you don't need to allow so much time and why our methods are 23% more effective than traditional leadership training programs. That's going to come next week. But I don't want you to wait for the next podcast to move, because the leaders inside 360 are not waiting and their results prove it. So I invite you to head over to 360leadersclub.com and you can submit your application to join the membership. What we do after you submit your application is if we have a spot available, we will get back to you and let you know if you are suitable. We will offer you a place. If we don't have any spots available, you will go on our priority wait list so that you are first in line to know when spots come up again. Now, it is a transformational experience. And I just don't want you to think that listening to the podcast is enough. What you've got to do is look at where you are now, where you want to be, and you need to take action. And if you're ready to take action, I'm your woman. So that's it. Until next week's episode of the show. Come back next week and I am going to be sharing more about the 7 steps in 360 so you understand. But please don't wait to submit your application because we have very limited spots available always. The membership is growing so fast and we are close to capping it. So I don't recommend that you wait if you are feeling called. Just submit your application and we can have a chat and see if it's a good fit for you. So until next week, guys, see you then. Same time, same place. Bye for now.